It's 6 o'clock, November 12th, 2019. The Board of Trustees of Colerain Township convening for the meeting, and we'll be going for the executive sessions. Heather, roll call, please.
Well, hold on. For the purposes of the executive session, you have to read
Well,
that.
first, we need to call the roll.
Thank you.
that you're
Roll call,
here
yeah.
for the beginning of the meeting. So, Mr. Inscombe?
Present.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir. I recommend that the board make a motion to go into executive session in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G2, to consider the sale of township property at competitive bidding. In accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G3, to discuss pending or imminent litigation with the township attorney. And in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G8, to consider confidential information relating to a specific business strategy and to discuss negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance.
What about employees?
Would you like to discuss that also? And also in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, to discuss the employment and compensation of public employees.
Perfect.
Good.
I'll make the motion.
And I will second it.
Any discussions?
Not from me.
Not from me.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
There will be adjourned for the executive sessions. We should be back. Good evening. It's 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Colerain Township Trustee meeting, November 12th, 2019. We are back from the executive sessions. Would you roll call, please?
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Okay. Mr. Mills, anything to report from the meeting?
There's nothing to
Especially
report.
executive session.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
You have a motion? The floor?
No,
Oh,
we
okay.
don't typically need
No,
it.
you don't. All right. So let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the meditation. Let us think about the veterans, loss of life, and also that veterans who sacrifice a life. Because of them, we have such a fantastic freedom. So let's have in our heart, think about the veterans. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Next on the agenda is fiscal office.
So I'd like to ask for the board's approval of the October 22nd, 2019 meeting minutes.
I motion that we would approve those minutes.
I second it. Any discussions?
Not
Yes.
for me.
Yes, Heather, when those are posted, there was an attachment that'll be.
Yes, that is all printed out.
Posted on our archives.
Yes, it sure will.
Okay, no other questions from me.
The roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Okay. The next on the agenda is a presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal. Good evening, Board of Trustees. We have three presentations for you this evening. The first two will be given by Chief Mark Denny. The first one is in regards to the Dale Woods line of duty death investigation. And turn it over to Chief Denny.
Thank you, John. Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Shortly after the death of Dale Woods, I formed a committee to look at the event from a different perspective. The criminal investigation was conducted and was done by professionals. In fact, one of them is here with us today, is Specialist Mike Plant from the Cincinnati Police Department's Traffic Safety Unit. But I wanted to look internally at our operations and determine if there was anything that we did not do, or could do better to prevent another tragedy like the one that occurred on January 4th. Specifically, I asked them to look at our policies, training, and our equipment. The State of Ohio Traffic Safety Office has law enforcement liaisons to facilitate traffic safety programs between the state and local police departments. Our liaison, Paul Humphreys, is well known and very well respected by law enforcement professionals throughout the region. And I asked Paul to serve as the chairman of this committee and stressed that I wanted an unbiased and critical look at our operations. Paul is a 30-year veteran of the Cincinnati Police Division, where he served as the Executive Assistant Chief of Police and was the interim police chief between Chief James Craig and Jeffrey Blackwell. Paul retired in 2015 and was hired by Coca-Cola as their Manager of Safety and Security in Tampa, Florida. I want to thank Paul and the committee for the hard work and their commitment to making policing safer. And Paul is here to provide an executive summary of the investigation and answer any questions you might have. Paul?
Thank you, Chief.
How you doing, Paul?
Hi there. You can go, Paul. First of all, thank you for inviting me. And I just want to make a little bit of clarity on this, because in case there's any confusion at all. This is not a reinvestigation of the crash. We had experts, as the chief mentioned, Mike Flam's here, and they did a very, very good, thorough investigation. The prosecutor's office worked diligently. So that's over and done with. What Chief Denny approached me about was looking at operations, looking at specifically training, equipment, and policy and procedure, and to see if there's anything in there that was either mistaken or could show some improvement, some opportunities. And I can tell you from the very beginning, Chief Denny was very transparent, told me in no uncertain terms, don't pull any punches. This is so we can get better. Unfortunately, there's no way to prevent something like this from ever happening again, but I think what we've done through the research and in re-looking at everything, we can make things a little safer and make some better recommendations. So I'm just going to briefly go over some of those, and if you have any question at all, I'll be glad to. So the committee was made up of myself, I chaired it, Detective Joe Hendricks, Traffic Safety Officer Patrick Quinn, Detective Mike Stockmeyer, Sergeant Dustin Weekly, and Officer Kurt Mekato. And those guys worked their butts off. We did testing of equipment at all hours in all conditions, a lot of research and a lot of meeting. One of the things that presented a challenge is you're lucky that Colerain Township is a progressive police department. This isn't something where I'm going in and I'm looking at policies from the 80s, which, believe it or not, when I visit police departments now, we still see that sometimes. Colerain Township's not like that. Very progressive, they keep up with things, and they really do look out for the safety part of it and to do what's right. So in looking at this, we decided to break it down and do some research beforehand with like similar line of duty deaths, things like that. When you look at federal data and state data, when you look at similar deaths where officers, first responders, highway safety personnel, they get struck when they're out of their vehicles, there is no bright line, oh, this is what's causing it all, and if we just do this, we'll fix it all. There's no answer for that. The main overall answer is people need to slow down, they need to pay attention. But there's no way that when an elderly person has a medical event and goes through barricades and strikes an officer, you're just not going to prevent that. It's one of those awful things that unfortunately does happen. And I'm going to apologize now. I've been sick all week, and the medication I'm taking is really drying my mouth out.
All good.
So, so we looked at similar line of duty deaths, and there, like I said, there was no bright line thing. So we don't have any recommendations from that of a national policy or anything like that. We looked at Dale's timeline. We see a lot of times where officers work a ton of hours. They've got off-duty shifts, they've got off-duty work, they've got school, family, stuff like that. We looked at Dale's timeline. There were no indications that his workload or anything else had anything that contributed him to being in that position. So that wasn't a concern. Staffing was fine. The radio traffic that night was not overwhelming. If you look at the weather, it had rained earlier and it was still misting, sprinkling, whatever you want to call it. But it really was cloudy, so there wasn't a lot more light. It was kind of dark, although the lighting was up on Colerain Avenue, except where the first accident caused the lights to go out. We went through and looked at policies and procedures. It was a committee's global look at it that we could make some general recommendations for the way the procedure manual is set up. But we had some specific recommendations. First of all, starting with training. So when it comes to training, they take advantage of sending officers to the appropriate schools and things like that. Roll call training. Because of the high demand for service in Colerain Township and many similar agencies, roll call training is often hard to do. And the way it used to be set up, and we did this in Cincinnati too, is you would have roll call training set up every night. It would take 5 to 10 minutes, and then it would be a different topic every night. So what happens is, officers are on off days, they're busy, or they come in and there's 10 radio runs waiting, so they've got to respond to those. So the recommendation we made was pick a topic, whether it's traffic related or whatever it's related to, pick one topic for a week. At some point, an officer during a week's worth of work is going to be able to spend that 10 minutes or 15 minutes doing the roll call training. And there's many ways you can do this. You can do it a PowerPoint, you can do it in person. There's lots of ways you can present the roll call training. The other part is the field training officer program. So most places, traffic management, so when you're managing a crash or managing a critical incident involving traffic control, it's done in the field training program, and it's not very structured. I looked across the state, I looked through NHTSA files and things like that. There's just not a lot of it there. A lot of it is just passed down from police officers' experience. You use an experienced officer to teach the newer officers. So what I did is I actually located a department in a little bit north of Dayton, Tip City, Ohio. Their chief is very, very strongly traffic oriented. They've had an officer hit in the past, and they wanted to make sure that didn't happen again. They've got a training program that a sergeant manages, does a very good job. So we went up and visited, we viewed it, and we've gotten that information. And Chief Denny and Pat Quinn are kind of coordinating that to put that together. They do hands-on reconstruction where they'll present an intersection. They could say it was Colerain and Galbraith or whatever, but present an intersection and ask the officer right now, okay, here's the cars, here's the crash, here's the incident, here's the injuries. How are you gonna handle this? And it's that hands-on training that gives people that real hands-on training, and it makes for better training rather than sitting in a car and reading a book. So that's part of the recommendations we had for the policy. Some of the other stuff was basically, it was just changing the wording of some of the equipment, making sure that it was revised to reflect recommendations for different vests and things like that we're looking at. So none of these were, when it comes to policy, we didn't find any policy where we say, wow, that's a bad one. We're telling them how to do it wrong. We need to stop that. We didn't find anything like that. We just saw some opportunities where we could improve some wording, add some wording, and then the general recommendation was to take a look at the whole procedure manual and the policy manual and break it down. You could have the procedure that'll be 70-some pages. If you're trying to look something up, you're trying to teach something, it's kind of unmanageable. So break that down by specific topics, and I think it'll be a little easier. And I think Chief Denny's already starting on that. One of the biggest things, and it was time consuming, but I think we did the best we could with it, was reviewing safety equipment. I tried not to come in with preconceived notions, but being OSHA certified when I was with Coca-Cola, you learn about the ANSI level of reflectivity of vests. There's 3 levels. Almost every police department in the country uses level 2. And my thought was immediately, well, we're going to go to level 3 and we'll possibly get the lighted vest because that's what everybody was talking about. So we tested those. We got sample vests from several different companies, and none of us are related to or attached. I don't work for any of them. I don't get a bonus or anything like that. But we tested those. We tested them in daytime lighting, nighttime lighting, with street lights, without street lights. And I'll be honest, I was very surprised at some of the things that we found. So the lighted vests, the ones you've all seen where they have a nickel cadmium battery, and it's almost got a glow and a glow stick type of thing. Those are fine if the officer is out in the dark and there's no other lighting around. You'll see that glow. But if you've got the LEDs from the overhead lights on a police car, you've got bright street lights or other ambient lighting that's around, they're terrible. They did not show up. So we looked at, and we compared those to several different vests, like I said, at very different lighting levels. And we came up with a selection that was actually the best one. So we've made those recommendations for the traffic vest. We looked at hats, we looked at gloves, we looked at different colors of the cones, the wands that you put on flashlights. We were surprised that the neon yellow is actually brighter than the orange one that almost everybody uses. So those type of recommendations for equipment are what's also contained in here. There is a level 3 jacket that is a reversible weatherproof jacket. We've recommended that too. But Chief Denny told me they were looking into that already, and they discontinued that model. So we'll keep looking, but we'll find something. As far as other equipment, we wanted to make sure that each car had the appropriate equipment. The traffic cones that are so often used in traffic situations like that, we want to make sure all of them have the reflective tape on it. It makes a huge difference. I didn't think it would, but it really does. The lighted beacons, some of you have to be careful of which ones you use. Some of them are really good, and some of them aren't at all. The biggest thing is, even the ones who say that they're crush-proof and damage-proof, they're not. The other thing is, they make really good souvenirs for kids. So if you're busy managing a scene, there's a good chance they're going to walk away. So there's some things to take into account when you're looking at this. When we looked at the head-to-toe equipment for a police officer, one of the things that you have to understand is you got to make sure that it's something that's easy to take on, take off. It doesn't interfere with the radio gun and other operations that you might have. So, we weren't looking to bubble wrap a policeman in neon yellow. It just wasn't going to work. So we made recommendations that we think are workable. We didn't worry about cost because Chief Denny said don't worry about cost. It's more important to make people safe. But we didn't go overboard on things like that. Finally, other equipment, safety equipment for the vehicles, is there special LED lighting now that goes on the sides of vehicles and especially on the sides of push bumpers. So when a police officer pulls up to an intersection and they're inching forward to see, can they clear it, because they've got to get to the other side, those LEDs on those push bumpers make it very noticeable. They've shown that those have reduced intersection crashes. So that's another recommendation that we made. And then finally, we talked about training a little bit. Like I said, we met with the Tip City Chief and the sergeant up there. We got their training program, and we're going to try and replicate that here. It's not going to be any extra cost or anything, and I think it'll be very valuable. In FTO training, we want to make sure that an officer spends a week with the traffic folks. They specialize in crashes on highways, serious injury crashes, spectacular crashes, and you don't want to have somebody who's been on for 6 months and all of a sudden they've got that horrible crash that's got trying to manage traffic and everything else, and they haven't seen that yet, or they haven't done it by themselves yet. So I want to give them that exposure. Finally, we came up with some general recommendations and looking at that. And we talked about the procedure manual and making that more manageable, and looking at that and updating that. Performance evaluations to include traffic management skills. One of the things that Chief Danny and I discussed, and he's instituting that, is supervisors already review the body cameras. We want to make sure that they pick a time when they know, or pick a radio run when they know an officer had to manage a crash, and go and look at that body cam and see how they did. A lot of times we're going to learn, hey, he did a really good thing that we hadn't thought of before, or she did a really good thing. But reviewing the body cams specifically for crash management. We talked about roll call training, talked about performance evaluations, and the procedure manual. And that's about it. That's just a brief overview. The report's available. If anybody needs to get a hold of me, I will be glad to answer questions. And if you've got any questions now, I'll be glad to answer.
So thank you very much for your report. Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. The next presentation will be presented by Chief Denny. Where did he go? Oh, there he is. Very good. This is the monthly crime analyst update. I'm going to try to get this on the screen here.
Our crime analyst had a family emergency this morning, so he forwarded his presentation to me, so I'll try to do my best here with it.
Thanks for stepping up.
Of course, if it doesn't want to do it.
Very similar to the report he gave the last time he was here. We're going to go over township-wide, and then we'll break down each beat, and I'll just give you some of the highlights of that. If you have any questions, I can certainly answer those. And this report has been posted to the township website like we promised we would do. So any resident who wants to go on there and dig a little deeper into these numbers are welcome to do that, but I'll just give you some of the highlights that I saw. Township-wide, we've seen a reduction of violent crime. This is over a 3-year average. This year, as compared to that 3-year average, we're down 32% in violent crime township-wide, 33% property, which is a total of 33% total crime. Some of the highlights of that area: rape was down 41%, robbery down 34%, and burglaries, which has been great township-wide in every beat, was down 52%. And again, we credit a lot of those.
Did you say 3 beat?
I'm sorry?
What beat did you say?
Township-wide as well as individual beats themselves. We've seen these large reductions in burglary.
Okay.
We credit a lot of that, again, to the QRT and the efforts we're doing with the heroin to reduce those property crimes. So that's the township-wide stats, if you want to go to the next. It's just a general map of where some of these crimes were reported throughout the township. Each beat will show their individual map so you can get a better idea where that is. Next, please. Beat 1, which is basically the Groesbeck White Oak area. Violent crime there was 31% reduced. Property crime, 36% reduction, with a total crime reduction of 35%. 94% of the crime in the one beat was property crime. So that's something interesting we look at to see if those numbers change month to month. Rape was down 70% and burglary was down 66%. We did see an increase in aggravated assault of 2 instances. That shows a large percentage increase, but again, we're dealing with small numbers, so any number increase is going to show us a large percentage. That was the only increase we saw in that beat. This is the beat 1 crimes. The red is violent, blue is property crime. Okay. Beat 2, Peach Grove, Lake Hills, western part of the township. Violent crime was down 40% there. Property crime down 35% with a total reduction of 35%. And I set this out to you a couple months ago. This is not specific to just Colerain Township. Jurisdictions throughout the area are seeing large reductions right now in all kinds of crimes. So this isn't anything that's just special to us, but we are glad to see the numbers as well. Burglary in that beat was down 57%. They did have an increase in 3 instances of auto theft. That's one of the only increases we've seen in auto theft this year. We've really tackled that. We were about 60% higher township-wide in that area last year, and we've really done a lot to reduce that. So we did see an uptick on that beat there. Go to the next slide. That's the beat 2 crimes. Beat 3, which is the Mall, Northgate, Colerain from 275 down to Ronald Reagan, comprises a 3 beat. There was a violent crime reduction of 49%, property crime reduction of 14%, which is what we kind of expect. That's a lower property crime reduction than any other beat, but that's our business district, so that's not unusual. Total crime was down 16%, and 98% of the crime in the 3 beat is property crime. 2% is violent crime. The biggest reductions there: aggravated assault was down 70%, rape was down 44%, and robbery was down 40%. We had 5 additional burglaries in the 3 beat. That's the only beat we saw an increase in the burglaries. Next will be the 4 beat, which is Northbrook and Skyline Acres. Violent crime was down 25%, property down 37%, for a total reduction of 36%. 91% of that crime was property. We saw a reduction in rape of 40%, theft 37%, and burglary 36%. And we had 2 additional robberies than we did over the last 3-year average period. And 5 beat, which is Colerain north of Struble, and east, which is the Pleasant Run area, is included in that. Violent crime was down 24%, property down 38%, and the total was 37%. And there's 94% of the crime in that area was property crime. And robbery was a large reduction there, 43%. Burglary was 68% reduction, which is big. Auto theft was a 67% reduction, and we had one additional rape incident in that beat over the 3-year average. So in general, the largest reduction of total crime was beat 5 at 37%, followed by beat 4 at 36%. when we look at Part 2 crime, which you'll see on each of those charts, we didn't really touch on that, but in Beat 1, the most frequent crime that is a Part 2 crime was criminal damaging. They had 35. In Beat 2, the most frequent Part 2 crime was DUI at 7. Beat 3 had disorderly conduct at 32. Again, that's our business area, which is not unexpected. Domestic violence in Beat 4 at 39. And then Beat 5 was disorderly conduct at 20, and township-wide criminal damaging is our highest Part 2 crime. So Part 1 are your more your violent crimes that the FBI tracks. Part 2 encompasses basically every other crime that's not encompassed in Part 2, or in Part 1, I'm sorry. So township-wide, again, criminal damaging is our number one with theft. And again, that entire report is posted as you saw it here, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
No, I appreciate you stepping up and doing that presentation since he couldn't be here.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Rajagopal, Board of Trustees, the next presentation is a really exciting one, and Assistant Chief Will Mueller will be introducing a presentation on a donation that is being given by the Vineyard Northwest Church.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning.
Good evening. Good morning. Same difference, you know.
7:25. Good evening. Good evening. I'm honored to be part of this next presentation, actually. As many of us know by now, community support and collaboration have been vital to the success of the Township's quick response team, the first of its kind and now national model used to address the opiate epidemic. That collaboration and support have allowed the quick response team to engage in over 300 Township residents in treatment for their opiate addiction since July of 2015. These numbers translate to a near 50% reduction in overdose responses by law enforcement and EMS, as well as a significant reduction in the potential spread of hepatitis C and HIV, not to mention the crime that was just reported off by Chief Denny. Due to the collaboration and grant funding opportunities, these services provided by the quick response team have operated with little to no cost to the Township residents. However, we also have learned that treatment is not the end of this journey. In order to be truly successful, the scope of our quick response team program must increase to allow for societal reintegration. It must help connect individuals with the necessary wraparound social needs like nutrition, wellness, job search assistance. These things are vital if we are to say we are truly ridding ourselves of this horrible disease and limiting its impact on our community. However, funding and volunteerism for these types of services are very difficult at best to secure for those who need them. Our partnership with Vineyard Northwest Church has now made it possible for us to provide some of these resources to those in our community exiting recovery. With this partnership, Colerain residents in recovery can now have assistance developing an exit strategy from treatment that will help them re-engage with purpose into society. On behalf of Colerain Township's Quick Response Team, I'd like to thank Vineyard Church for this valuable partnership, and I'd like to ask them to come up at this time where Wilson and Van Cochran of the church will provide us with the presentation. And Jen Plager, representing CFA. Jen? There you are.
So I talk to you guys, right?
Into the microphone so everybody at home can hear you too. Good to see you guys again.
Hey, thank you guys for having us here tonight. I'm going to introduce you really quick to the people with me because this isn't me handing this over. This is a community of people of Vineyard Northwest that really believe in our township and our city and want to see it transformed. And so yeah, this is Matt Hedges, member and leader in the church, survivor of addiction. Dave and Deanna Lampert. Dave is one of the trustees of the church and was instrumental in these funds being raised. And then Bob Relag, behind the camera over there, is actually Bob and Diana, you know, famous in this area, but they're the whole connection point. Bob introduced me to Will, so without that connection, I wouldn't be here right now. But most importantly, my parents, Van and Lori Cochran, the founding pastors of the church, and I just want to, and senior pastors, leaders of the church, hand it over to them to say some stuff. Say a couple words.
Thanks, Wilson. We started this church in 2001, my wife and I. And from the very beginning, our hearts were to see people freed from just destructive behaviors and things in their lives that were really killing them. And so it's really natural, it feels very natural for us to be here right now and to make this presentation. I'm thankful for all the generous people in our church who make it possible, and we're just very happy to be here and to be part of this, and very proud of our son Wilson, who drove the whole thing, and it was his vision originally, and so I'm going to give the mic back to him.
Yeah, so just last thing I'll say, the context, we were wanting to do some updates to the church, and with a real outward focus that my parents have had in the church's life from the beginning, thought, how do we tie this into blessing our community and to really representing Jesus to the community? So we raised $200,000 to do some different things to the church, and at the beginning committed that we were going to give 10% of however much we got. So sorry we didn't get $200 million. So $23,600 is what I just want to present to you guys tonight to the Citizens Fire Academy, and yeah, excited for what's happening in our community and how we're leaders in our entire nation in fighting opiate addiction.
It's incredible. Incredible. Thank you. Thank you.
You too. That's really fantastic, so thank you so much. I'm going to ask you a question for the mic from it.
That's incredible. I don't know where to begin.
That's amazing.
I don't know where to begin.
So I have a question. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Just so everybody knows, and I know where you're located, but where are you located, and how would somebody get involved in the great programs you have there?
We are located at 9165 Round Top Road, which, if you know where the plumbing supply store is on Colerain Avenue, down beside Colerain Bowl.
Sure.
Just right up the hill from that. And we have services on Sunday morning at 9:30 and 11:30. And we have a number of things happening throughout the week. We have a school that my son leads on Sunday nights that is preparing people for ministry. We have a ministry called Divorce Care that helps people who have gone through divorce to deal with heart issues and prepare to move ahead in life, and a number of other things that are happening there. So thank you.
That's really fantastic. I always thought that I think we're at the point in the cycle of our society where if money was going to fix society's problems, that would have already happened. I'm counting on the churches of all denominations to help resolve society's problems, and a lot of them money's not going to solve, and it's going to be turning back to God and giving our problems and questions to Him to get them resolved. So I really appreciate your efforts, and wow, that is quite a donation to help our program, and we really sincerely appreciate it.
Yeah, that's an incredible donation. I don't even know where to begin as far as that goes, but I will say this, if anybody's looking to get married, they do a great job at the church, so all you lovebirds out there, keep them in mind.
But thank you again. That's
So thank
incredibly
you, yeah.
generous. So
Thank you so much for, make our township, because of people like this, make our township a better place to live, and helping these opiate addicts and giving them a guidance. It's amazing work.
You're very
what
welcome.
Church is doing. And joining the part of our fire department, they're the top notch in the country, and in the QRT program, and the drug prevention program. It
I
is.
think it really, just presenting that to our church really motivated people to give. The QRT program, when they saw what that was, I think it really made a big difference. So,
Our police department also do a great job working with the fire department, and that's a wonderful program known in the country, one of our best program in the country.
Can this be an annual thing? 200 million next year, is that what you said?
I'll tell you what, if we get the money again next year, we'll give 10%.
Amen, amen.
thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
incredible.
That is incredible. And it's a testament to the, as you said, it's a testament to the incredible work that our police department and fire department have done, and the amount of trust that they are placing into the program that was created here in Colerain Township is really staggering. We really appreciate that. That concludes our presentations this evening.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
The next on the agenda is public hearing zoning case ZA 2019-07, zoning map amendment for 7560 to 7580 Colerain Avenue.
How you doing, Mike?
I would motion.
I would say, I think the staff presentation would come first, and then there would be a public hearing right
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Mike Iona. I'll be presenting the staff report for the public hearing. The request before the board this evening is a zoning map amendment for case number ZA 2019-07. The application is from the Colerain Community Improvement Corporation, and it's for the rezoning of property located at 7560 to 7580 Colerain Avenue. The request is to change the zoning on the site in question from a B2, which is a general business district, to the B3, which is a commerce district. And the purpose of the rezoning is to develop the site in question as part of a project on an adjacent property, which is being developed for a contracting public utility maintenance facility. So here we have the site in question. It's located on the east side of Colerain Avenue. The site contains an area of approximately 1.18 acres. The topography of the site is relatively flat. It contains approximately 210 feet of frontage on Colerain Avenue. And the site in question is the former site of the Fireside Inn and the Colerain Community Resource Center, both of which are now vacant. In March of 2019, a zoning certificate was issued for the construction of a new operations center at 7600 Colerain Avenue, adjacent to the subject property shown here in yellow on this slide. The facility is now under construction and is owned by Duke Energy Ohio LLC. The development includes offices, training facilities, vehicles, and equipment maintenance, inventory of utility grid parts, and parking. Duke Energy is seeking to expand the original plan to provide additional parking, as well as storage space in cooperation with the CIC. The CIC purchased the site in question, shown in red on the site on the slide here, in July of 2019. They also purchased the Colerain Community Resource Center and have recently cleared the site for development. So here is the zoning map. You can see the site in question shown in red, along with the areas to the west, northwest, and the immediate area to the south, shown in the kind of light salmon color, are currently zoned B2. Again, that's a general business district which permits a wide variety of commercial retail service office uses. If you look to the immediate east of the site in question, you can see in that kind of darker purple shaded area that is currently zone B3. That's the commerce zone. The commerce zone permits a variety of commercial retail service uses, including light industrial, which is what the Duke complex is currently categorized. So that is the impetus for the zone change. The applicant is looking to go from B2 to B3 so that their use would be permitted. Here you can see just a general slide looking to the east over the site in question. You can see this isn't currently up to date. Many of the buildings in the to the rear of the slide are currently demolished. In fact, there's currently construction going on that area. The site in question, outlined in red, is currently occupied by the Fireside Inn, as well as the Community Resource Center. A substantial portion of the Fireside Inn has currently been demolished. The CRC, I think, is coming next. So again, here you can see the existing site plan for the Duke Energy Center. Again, this site is currently located to the immediate east and north of the site in question. The site in question is currently outlined in red. Slide. And here is a picture of the existing conditions on the site in question. In the peripheral area to the rear of the slide, you can see the existing Duke Energy complex being constructed. In the foreground of this slide, you can see some of the demolition being constructed or being done on the Fireside Inn. So as it pertains to conformance with the comprehensive plan, which is one of the required findings for a zone change, staff finds that this specific area is located in Area 11, which is the White Oak Community Character Area of the comprehensive plan. Slide. And this plan specifically calls out the area. Slide. This plan specifically calls this area out for the encouragement of light industrial uses along Colerain Avenue south and west of Galbraith Road, which is where the site is located. Such uses should be fully enclosed because of the high visibility of the area. Review of this proposal shows conformance with what's called out for in the comprehensive plan. As it pertains to the requested zoning district, the B3 zoning district, the Commerce District is intended to provide employment centers in the township that could contain a mixture of retail, office, and/or light industrial uses that are located within enclosed structures and minimal exterior storage. Obviously, the light industrial speaks to the proposal, which is consistent with what was identified in the comprehensive plan. As such, staff is recommending approval of the request to rezone the properties from B2 to B3. And additionally, the zoning commission voted unanimously on October 15th to recommend favorably of the requested zone change. I would like to add one last little thing before I conclude my report and answer any questions you may have, and that is as it pertains to the resolution portion that will come later in the planning and zoning items. There was a small clerical error that I had in the agenda item, and that was that there was the recommended approval of a resolution denying the zone change should have been approving the zone change. And then there was a clerical error regarding the findings of the zone change.
Minor error.
Your resolution is all intact. It was just that small little piece on the, that first piece, just the introduction piece. So your resolution is fine.
I pointed that out. I pointed that out last week when I saw it, so.
Doing that, I appreciate that. We had closed it off, so I just wanted to make sure that that was noted on the record.
Yes.
I have a question. Initially, the Duke came to the zoning commission, they disapproved it, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
The zoning commission for the B2, when they applied.
So this is a property
They
currently
come back and amend it, they want to change it to B2 to B3. Initially, the zoning disapproved it?
No, this is this property that we're talking about is owned by the Community Improvement Corporation, and it has not come to the BZA, or it has not come to the Zoning Commission in the past.
Okay. So I was reading that thing, it says, one paragraph, it says, initially was
Denied?
zoning commission
was-
disapproved.
That was
this.
the clerical error he was just talking
Oh,
about.
that's,
He
Yes.
made the mistake.
That was my clerical error on the item, agenda item. If you read that report, that was the clerical error.
He made it was mistaken.
They
It was
went
a
to the
mistake.
zoning commission on October 15th.
Right.
And they were recommended for approval.
so you're making B3, which is a commercial district. Now, when I reading the resolution, they were primarily, the Duke is going to use it for the storage and parking. Okay? So how this, is a parking of that Duke Energy trucks right in front of the Colerain Avenue, or how that, do they give you any kind of?
Development plan with this, a development plan isn't required with a straight letter zone. Their parking will have to be in conformance with the requirements of zoning ordinance.
So they're going to build the storage right in the front of the building, correct?
Again, we don't have the specific plan. The intent is that this site would be used for storage and/or parking. Any building improvements, so if they build a storage structure or a parking structure, it will be in compliance with the current requirements of the zoning ordinance, which has size of off-street parking spaces, landscaping requirements, building material requirements, setbacks, et cetera. But with this specific type of zone change, they are not required per our ordinance to submit a development plan.
I don't believe it's their intention to build a storage building or anything. I think the intention is to have parking and drive aisles to get you back to parking.
For all the new, for all the new employees that are going to be employed in Colerain Township.
Approximately 100.
Yes.
Yes.
But not for the Duke Energy truck. That's what I'm concerned. I don't want to see the Colerain Avenue parked, all the Duke Energy trucks. Look like another used car.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Yeah.
before we go further with the questioning, could we open the public hearing?
Okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I second it. Okay,
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Anyone who intends to testify in the public hearing, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this public hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
go ahead.
Okay. Anyone who would like to testify? Yes.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
It's a public hearing, so you were giving input.
You just give.
Yep, yep.
I like what Raj brought up because that was my big concern too. I would ask the board to consider, instead of doing a zoning change, that we grant them a variance. Because if at any point in the future they decide to transfer this property, or they decide to alter their plans, they'll only be contained, they'll be contained by the new zoning whatever code, the B3, instead of the B2. And if we maintain the B2 with a variance, then that gives us more control to dictate what they can, and in the future, what can be put there. But I feel like if we just do a zoning change instead of the variance, if that's possible, if I'm not real big on zoning laws, then we are accomplishing the goal of supporting the Duke establishment without compromising our ability to control the development of that area in the future. I want to point out to you that we have, like, if you go down Colerain Avenue, where I think it was Bennett Ford is, and then right across from Joseph, we have a whole heck of a lot of storage going on Colerain Avenue that nobody's really citing them for. And now we're bringing more storage. So I think it would be in the community's best interest if you guys exercise the greatest control on this development, since it is at our entrance to the community. For not just, I completely support the whole Duke thing. I think it's wonderful. I think you did frickin' awesome on that. I really do. I don't like the TIF. I don't like us paying for their sidewalks and crap. But I think this was wonderful for that area. But if we change the zoning, we are only limited to the zoning definition. But if we do the variance, we get what we want and we retain control. So that is my big thing. On this property with the zoning change, does the, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, since I'm not supposed to ask questions, does the front of it stay the same? Are the restrictions for the sidewalk and the landscaping, are they the same requirements as in both B2 and B3 and everything? Okay, I guess nobody wants to answer.
Maybe after I can, or Mike can address that.
Okay. But anyway, so that's my recommendation, is that you guys maintain control of that property by restricting it and just giving them a variance and making them happy that way.
Thank you.
Was there anybody else that was going to testify in the public hearing?
No.
So seeing
Motion
none,
to close the public hearing? I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second it. Any discussions?
Not from me.
Good roll call, please.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
The public hearing is closed.
and so from here forward, at the end, in new business, the trustees will consider a resolution that will, if passed, change the zoning designation from B2 to B3. So at that point, there can be a discussion and the point of this part of the agenda right now is to hold the public hearing. We just did that. And so when it comes up in new business, I think we'll revisit everything and we can answer questions, and that'll be an easy question to answer. So at that time. Okay?
Good. The next on the agenda is the citizens address. I have only two.
Here you go.
Kathy Moore, please.
There's only 3.
Oh, three.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask about the Northgate Mall contract again. I did receive a copy of it from Heather, the new one, which says it's effective October 17th. And as I recall, Raj had said that you would approve the Northgate contract if it was like the Walmart contract. And I have the Walmart contract, and it's not the same. There are several differences. And the one thing, the Northgate Mall contract says that all officers patrolling the shopping center in accordance with this agreement will remain at all times employees of Colerain Township. But it doesn't say if they will leave for an emergency, which in the Walmart contract it does. In the Northgate, it says that the township agrees that all insurance required to adequately cover vehicles, personnel, and equipment used by the township in the provision of the selected services will be provided by the township. And we do not provide any insurance with the Walmart. And then it says workers' compensation insurance, covering all officers, directly or indirectly, and commercial automobile liability insurance for hired, owned, registered under the township's name, and non-owned vehicles, including agreement liability with a single limit of liability not less than $1 million per accident for bodily injury and personal damage combined. So I wanted to bring that to your attention and ask, because it was signed, agreed upon by Mr. Mills, and I don't recall the board ever approving the final contract, because you said that you wanted it to be like the Walmart contract. As far as planting trees for, in the right-of-way on Laura Linda, will the township then have to maintain those trees if they would get into any of the wires? I don't know if it's on the side of the where the electric wires are, or if it's on the other side, but would that be the township's responsibility? And also on the Schuster Court, buying that and having it demolished, I just wonder, why are we not using the CIC for that? Because everything else that we did with real estate or whatever was with the CIC. And one last thing, because you have not addressed the policies and procedures, the new employee that you are hiring, and this goes for, I think we've hired 3 or 4 in the past recently, that this will cost the township an extra $3,269.60 for the extra vacation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. The next is Linda.
I just did a couple of things that I'd like to ask the board about. One of the things was that's actually on the agenda, and I had marked that it wasn't, but I had a question about the Civic Plus. It says it's a robust platform. What exactly is meant by robust? From what I understand, it's kind of like, I guess we've got a standard and there's different pieces you can add to this, which is kind of what this looks like. So are we outsourcing this, or is this just another part of the Civic Plus? And the other one was, I've got this thing where I like to go back through the meetings and kind of refresh things. And the question came up about grants, and I'm trying to learn more and more about grants, how they work. It's been like close to 50 years since I was in a civics class in high school, so I probably need a lesson on those. But anyway, back in 2017, there was a grant, I believe, for something called the MKSK, formerly known as the KKG. It was a study, I believe, that had to do with Northbrook. And then again, that came up in March 2017. I believe Mr. Mills went on a ride through the town, through Northbrook, and kind of got some ideas of, I guess, what this company could do for them. And then 2 months later, there was actually a contract that was given to them. They called it Northbrook Placemaking Initiative. And that cost was $12,000. And I'm just asking, did that come from grant money? Or where exactly did that come from? Then with our current board, there's also something called Urban Fast Forward for Northbrook. And from what I'm reading, it looks like there was a $25,000 grant. I'm not sure. I'd like to get clarification on that, if that came from that grant. And I'm trying to understand what the difference is between these two studies. What was the one that was in 2017 compared to the one in 2018? And just how they correlate with each other. Are we overlapping what was done from the previous one, and where the money came from for the two different studies that were done? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. I got Kerry Davis. Is that the one you spoke before? That's different. You need to citizen address. Go ahead.
Okay. Couple quick things. When you do the trees for Laura Linda, I suggest you look at the Arbor Foundation's Urban Canopy Program, because they have a really great way for you to figure out which types of trees should be planted where to get the maximum benefit from it, to even offset some of the impact of Rumpke and our heat island that's going on. I was curious if somebody could tell me if there were other bids other than Jeffrey Allen. I love Jeff. I know the family. Our kids went to school together, and they're wonderful and a wonderful company. But I was curious about the other bids, because I've been told that there were lower bids. I was kind of curious to why we did not go with a lower bid. On the truck, I found it just a little disturbing that we were buying another crew cab when we just bought one, and I have a real problem with redundancy across jurisdictional lines, so I really have a problem with us spending money within the township on the same thing we just bought, 7 months ago. So we already have a crew cab, and I would think that, except in the most peculiar, oddest circumstances, would that truck not be able to be utilized by the fire or the police department also? With the playground, I did a polling on Facebook, and I believe I sent you guys the results. Well over 100 people have responded to that poll, which, by the way, the Facebook polling mirrors the results generally received when you do your own polling. Almost identical in results, just more people. And nobody really likes these playground themes at all. And so I had people post the types of playgrounds they wanted. And I wanted to share with you that over 50% of the people wanted a learning playground, which are very rare. They're kind of like what they have in the museums, but they're outside, and they're very, very cool, and it would be very unique and be a draw for organizations. The other 50% was shared amongst 3 other choices. But I wanted to share that with you. I don't really understand why we're continuing to collect and waste a whole lot of time collecting input on 3 playgrounds that nobody seems to like. I'm not hearing anything positive. The other thing is, I was wondering if you could amend your agenda tonight and add the other mini grant that was submitted for approval, because on that contract, time is of the essence, and there is just no way to do that pop-up event without it being passed tonight. If you don't raise the issue tonight and make a decision, then you've killed it. It's done. So I'd like to see you amend the agenda and add that to it.
I talked about this earlier in the executive sessions, and we're going to put in the next special meeting. They didn't receive the application on time tonight for today's meeting.
Well, like I said, what is that, 2 weeks away? And we've got a 6-week
Probably
working.
December 3rd.
Yeah, that pretty well will kill it, because there's no way for a big company to make that arrangement for their equipment, their staffing and such. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity. So if you could possibly bring that up later, and if you want, I can talk to you more about that if that document hasn't been shared.
Thank you. That concludes the citizens' address. The next on the agenda is administrative reports.
Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal, Board of Trustees.
I filed to make a few public comments, I think, during this. Charlie Howard. Did you turn in a slip? I did, yeah. Put it in the basket. Is it still out? Can you see if it's still out there? Or?
Okay, it's all right.
No, the basket's empty.
Okay, I'll come and talk to you.
But we will need to, please state your name so Heather has it for the minutes, please.
Absolutely will. My name is Charlie Howard.
Typical spelling?
Yes, Howard. And I'm with the Greater Cincinnati Automobile Dealers Association, and I'm the Executive Vice President there. And thank you very much for giving me just a few moments tonight. Our association's a not-for-profit trade association. We represent over 93 franchise car dealerships in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. More specifically, our members own and operate 8 of the dealerships along Colerain Avenue. These dealerships play a vital role in fulfilling transportation needs by selling and servicing the motor vehicles residents rely on for conducting their daily lives. These 8 dealerships have had the opportunity to review the recently released review draft of the Colerain Avenue corridor study. While our members fully support improving the safety and appearance of the corridor, the review draft has raised considerable concern regarding the future ingress and egress to their dealerships. Specifically, they're concerned with proposed alternatives to left turns to and from Colerain Avenue and whether proposed median turns will provide sufficient access to their businesses. As with any retail establishment, ease of access is critical, not only to sales, but servicing customers and accommodating large transport trucks that deliver inventory in the form of vehicles and parts. In closing, the Colerain Avenue corridor study in its present form is very problematic for us. Any changes to the traffic pattern on Colerain Avenue will significantly impact their businesses, and therefore it is imperative that all potential solutions are considered. As economic stakeholders in the township, I ask that dealers and their representatives be provided seats at the table to discuss any and all options before Colerain Avenue corridor plan is adopted. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to make a few comments tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We found those missing
One
sign-in
missing,
sheets. I'm assuming this is our other one here. Raj likes to hide them under his
I got a
laptop.
list of Mike Flames.
Thanks for being here.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak before you. I'm a resident of Colerain Township. I live on West Kemper Road. My concerns regard the proposed subdivision of MI homes around
Fix your mic a little bit, Mr. Flam.
around the 3,000 block of West Kemper. I recognize that you can't vote on anything tonight. I recognize that you cannot do anything about this tonight. I'm simply bringing it to your attention. I want to give special thanks to Mike Owen of the zoning department for meeting with me and willing to speak about this concern that I have. Over the past couple of weeks, it's been brought to my attention that that subdivision may indeed create a water issue for the existing neighbors. Specifically, I live at the bottom in the valley. creek back there currently rises when there's as little as 2 inches of rain. There is a proposed 2 large retention ponds. These retention ponds, the base of the ponds currently as designed, have a floor as the same elevation as my backyard. As we know, water is, we can engineer it and we can try to predict, but it's not always predictable. If Hamilton County gives a standard rubber stamp of approval and there's a problem, unfortunately Colerain Township is going to have to own that problem. What I'm asking of you is to postpone any type of vote and delay any progress until a few more in-depth engineering, water study of this of the effects. The proposed 67 houses on the acres that are there. Currently, that would be a substantial amount of water that is no longer being naturally absorbed into the ground. However, it's going to be run off into the retention ponds. Both of these ponds are directly behind my house. And as I said, I am in the basin and I am the one most adversely affected by this. If MI Homes is certain that this isn't going to create a problem, I'm sure that they can give a guarantee of sort. However, if they're wrong, the damage is already done. That house was custom built by my wife and I 13 years ago, and I certainly don't want to see the house damaged or ruined because of MI Homes' propositions. I do greatly appreciate any cooperation. I need your support, but I do thank you again for allowing me to be here.
Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. That concludes the citizens' address. The next on the agenda is administrative report.
Thank you, Mr. Gopal, Board of Trustees. I'll begin the administrative reports this evening just to try to answer some of the questions that came up in citizens' address. As it relates to the maintenance of trees, they will be within the right-of-way. Our maintenance program generally consists of, if the tree is dying or dead, we'll remove it from the right-of-way. Typically, if a tree grows up into the power lines, the power company is very quick to trim those back because it's a protection for their asset. And we aren't going to choose trees that are going to grow up into the power lines if they're going to be under power lines. On Schuster Court, a question was asked, are we going to use, or why are we not using the CIC for demo? It's just the way that this one has shaken out with it. The Board of Trustees is doing it. So that's why. Let's see, Civic Plus, what is meant by robust? So Civic Plus is the is one of our software programs that we use. And one of the things that it can do is there's a module called Civic Rec, and it allows for residents to more easily reserve shelters online. So you'll recall there wasn't too long ago that we would have this big push on March 1st, where everybody came up to the rotunda and reserved and had to reserve their favorite shelter, on March 1st at 8 a.m. What we're trying to do is make it easier for residents so that you can sit at your kitchen table at home and reserve a shelter with as much convenience as possible and pay for it there. So that's what the Civic Rec will allow us to do better. Let's see, MKSK. So the question came up about all the great work that we're doing in Northbrook and that the Northbrook group is doing in Northbrook. So the timeline on that, yes, in 2017 we partnered with MKSK, and the goal with that project, the Creative Placemaking Project, was to give the pretty newly formed Northbrook group a playbook for how to activate a space using placemaking as an economic development tool. It's a tool that's been used in many other communities. The idea was you program a space and you demonstrate that people are going to come there, and when people show up over and over and over again, all of a sudden you can change the economic development dynamic, and maybe you get somebody to lease a space. And so what they did was MKSK came in and trained the Northbrook core group on how to program the Northbrook shopping center space. That, I believe it was about $12,000, and that was not a grant at the time. The trustees at the time felt like that was a good investment to make, and so that was, the township paid for that. Fast forward to more recently, we have we received a $25,000 grant to do a strategic reinvestment plan, and there was an interview process that was done. It involved stakeholders from the neighborhood, and MKSK was selected as not MKSK. Urban Fast Forward was selected as the best vendor to create that strategic investment plan. That cost was paid for 100% by a grant. So that was fantastic. And the trustees just a couple of weeks ago adopted the Northbrook Strategic Reinvestment Plan. So that's how that worked. Let's see. In terms of street trees for Laura Linda, were there other bids? Yes, we sought many other bids. Ms. Davis, are you still here? No, she went outside. Okay. Well, we sought many other bids, and we only received one. So, and as it relates to amend the agenda to add a grant, so this year we have a pilot project, which is called a Creative Place Tactical Urbanism mini grant program, which is what I think is being referred to here. If you go to our website, you can apply online for a mini grant, and we have had one application so far. Ms. Davis represented that she has submitted an application. I have not seen that application, and I don't know that, I'm looking at staff here, and I don't see that anybody else has received it either. So the process is you apply online, and it gets our staff goes through and makes sure that it meets the criteria that the trustees adopted, and then the staff brings it to the trustees for approval. And you'll see one of those on the agenda tonight. It was the first one. So everybody is encouraged to do that. I think it's a really cool way to do neat projects. It sounds to me like exactly what Ms. Davis was talking about. It's just that there is a process that we need to follow that was set up and established by the trustees. So it can't just happen. There's an application and review process, and then it comes to the trustees. So it does take a little bit of pre-planning there. It's been a fantastic month. We are starting to wind down the year. We're beginning to think about next year. We've had a series of 3 town hall meetings that were just, I think, a great success. We were able to discuss what the residents' priorities are for next year, and we're starting to see the first action being taken on setting policy priorities for next year in a agenda item today where the trustees have identified their policy priorities for 2020. What we're going to do with that information is drill down even farther and have goals for every department in our strategic plan, initiatives that are going to help us accomplish those goals, and then a budget that is going to apply the resources to our goals and initiatives and really set ourselves on a great path for 2020. I believe that at the December 10th meeting, we will be discussing the 2020 strategic plan and budget, and I can't wait to have that conversation. It's been a lot of work, but it is a great way to plan our work so that we can work the plan. And with that, I'll end my administrative report, and let's start with Chief Cook. Would you like to, with the fire department?
Good evening.
Good evening, Board. The only items I had to report on this evening is the emergency incident activity for the month of October. The department responded to 740 emergency medical service incidents, 185 fire-related incidents, and responded into Springfield Township, the Pleasant Run Farms neighborhood 24 times as a first responder for emergency medical runs. 3 incidents of significance occurred during the month of October. There was a building and vehicle fire on Saturday, October the 12th in the 9100 block of De Palma Court. And on Wednesday, October 23rd, a building fire in the 8300 block of Furchet Terrace. In this particular incident, the fire department had to rescue one handicapped individual that was unable to self-evacuate from the house. So we could record a save there from that incident. And then the last one was on October the 28th, another building fire that occurred in the 2400 block of Stockport Court. The reported fire loss during the month was approximately $36,050. Our response time, average response time for the arrival of the first unit occurred in 5 minutes and 14 seconds on average. And then the first unit on scene in less than 6 minutes occurred 71% of the time. And that is all I have to report administratively, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Let's go next to Police Chief Mark Denny.
Good evening.
Just a couple quick items. Last Monday, our newly appointed State Representative Cindy Abrams presented the proclamation to the Police Department, recognizing our efforts at attaining certification to the State of Ohio Police Community Relations Collaborative that was set up a few years ago. So we thought that was really nice. She came about 7 a.m. and met with some of the officers, so that was very nice of her. The Police Department's going to host our second annual open house on Saturday, November 23rd, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And just like last year, we'll have stations set up, including our use of force simulator, and our K9s will both be there. Next Coffee with the Chiefs is this Friday at Red Squirrel at 9 a.m. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize military veterans and thank them for their service. And also like to take a moment to recognize the 8 military veterans we have on the police department. Actually, one of them is serving his reserve commitment right now. I think it says a lot about their character that not only they serve their country, but they come back home and continue to serve their community. So just to take a moment to thank them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Great work. Thanks.
Next, we have Planning Director, Mr. Mike Iona.
Good evening, board members. 7.5 weeks in, still haven't accomplished all that I set out to do. Mr. Unger, you'll be proud of me today. I was climbing through the hills of Colerain in somebody's backyard in response to a very concerned customer's request about some junk and debris in a neighbor's yard. So I've got the mud on my boots to prove it. I am
Fabulous. Keep up the great work.
planning director.
Hands-on. That's what I like.
Yes, I thought you'd like that. So in that vein, it's been a very busy month. We had 65 violations closed on the code enforcement side. 10 of them were referred to court. We had 20 trash abatements. And as far as violations entered, we had 51 zoning violations entered, 93 property maintenance violations entered, and then 11 other violations entered. So if you can see 65 closed, we've got a lot more coming in. So we will be continue to be busy with respect to code enforcement. As it pertains to the bank foreclosure program, we've got 10 bank-initiated foreclosures this month. 3 new vacant buildings were reported. 1 initial vacant property registration, and then 2 renewals this month. With respect to planning review and then zoning administration, we had 1 BZA case this month, 2 zoning commission cases, 1 subdivision and open space application, and then we had 5 single-family zoning permits and then 26 other zoning permits. Summation of my report.
Mike, thank you for, I sent you those 2 Roosevelt and that 1 on Lincoln. It sounds like you jumped right on it, which is good. And those properties, since they were just sold on October 31st, now they have to file a vacant property, so people understand how that works?
Yes, so we've got that in the queue, and we'll be following up with those property owners.
Chief Cook brought up an interesting point. There was a fire on First Shade, so I don't know how much damage there was to that structure. Just as a process item, how does the fire department communicate to the zoning department? Was that a total burnout, or what was the damage there?
It was not a total burnout.
Okay.
So we have a communication process if they have something that burns down.
Right. So we don't get the next Schuster Court?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we're working on that. In fact, we're working on improving that in 2020 and cracking open what we currently do and making it even more
It's good policy.
So I think you'll be happy to see what we roll out.
We have made a ton of progress in the last 2 years here. We really have, and I'm glad you're heading up those efforts, and just keep moving forward with it.
Thanks so much.
Colerain Township's a lot nicer place to live because of the efforts of our zoning and code enforcement, and it's getting better.
Agreed.
Appreciate it. We've got a great staff.
Amen.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Iona. That concludes the administration reports. Yes, we can introduce Jeff. Our new finance director, Mr. Jeff McElravy, is here in the back. Jeff, do you want to stand up and so everybody can? There we go.
Thank you for being named Jeff. We appreciate that. We need more Jeffs.
That concludes our report.
Okay, the next on the agenda is trustees report. Mr. Hungary wants to go first.
Thank you, Raj. There was an election last week. I'd like to congratulate Matt Teetsort and Jim Detzel on their election to the Northwest Local School District Board of Education. There's a lot of work to do over there, and I wish them both the best. Here in Colerain, Matt Wallert is going to the trustee-elect, and Mr. Jeff Baker, yet another Jeff, will be our incoming fiscal officer. I appreciate you both being here. There's a lot to learn. I hope by our next meeting we can get you a couple chairs up here just so you can see what it looks like from up here. Best wishes to both of you, and congratulations to everybody who ran a campaign. It's a tough thing to do is get elected, and that tells me I know who's next. So since those two have that past them now. As far as our playground issue, I did go over to the West Fork Playground over in Green Township and spent almost an hour and a half there on a very warm Sunday afternoon a couple weeks ago, and just watched what happened. I counted over 60 people there, a lot of young kids. I did talk to a lady who had come over there from Anderson Township to see it, and that's a long way to go, but most of the folks were very local Green Township residents. I'm very shy and introverted, so I have a problem approaching strangers, as you well know. It's been well documented
At a
at
playground.
these meetings. No, I told a couple of them I was a trustee in a neighboring township, and I wanted to get some sincere feedback on what they liked and what they didn't like. That's a great facility. I wonder how those surfaces and textures are going to weather over time. It just looks like something that, the oxidation and the wind and the rain and the snow, so that's something, we're far from making a final decision on our new structure, and, surfaces and textures are going to be something that really needs to play into it. It's not just the initial investment, it is the long-term maintenance cost. The other thing I'd like to mention is over a couple weeks ago, Colerain Township lost a wonderful person, Mr. Bud Hargis. I've known him most of my life. He leaves behind a wonderful wife and 6 kids, Dan, Tim, Jerry, Jim, Patty, and Doug. Dan's been a Hamilton County Sheriff's Deputy for a long time. I'm sure you know Dan Hargis from your time. He served honorably in the United States Army. He got a master's degree from Xavier. He was the opening principal when Houston Elementary opened in 1966. He was there for about 10 years. He went to Hoffman School and was there for about 10 years, and then he ended up at Mount Healthy High School, I guess, and was the principal there for 10 years. He went on to Miami University, and he was all over the township. He coached the youth sports. He was out running the streets and the sidewalks before it became such a popular thing to do, and lived to the wonderful age of 90. And God bless him and his family and his wife, and they were just wonderful contributors to our culture here in Colerain Township, and he will be missed. So may God rest Mr. Bud Hargis's soul, and that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. You want to go?
It doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
You want to be Jeff Rajagopal for the day, and I'll be Jeff. All right. So I hope everyone had a happy Halloween and a happy Veterans Day, and I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. I want to say that if anyone can help me, I want to get these new elected officials involved in our community as much as possible. Please invite them out to everything. I've done my best to send them stuff and get them involved, but I think the best elected officials are the ones that are the most involved. So I strongly encourage everyone, outside of inviting them over to dinner, maybe invite them over to dinner too. If there's something going on in the community, reach out to your newly elected officials and give them a chance to be involved. They're both here tonight. Jeff, of course, aptly named, and then Jeff Wallert, is that your name? Oh, Matt Wallert, I'm sorry. You look like a Jeff. Anyway, congratulations, both of you. And if there's anything I can personally do for you, by all means, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be happy to help you with anything you need. Other than that, I've been slowly checking out over the last few months since I decided not to rerun. Every month I've done an event. We went canoeing, then we did a free ice cream social. All these events are free. Then we did free Zumba, and then the next one's going to be the 25th of this month. So stay tuned. We'll do something fun for that. And other than that, if anyone ever needs anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Jeff.
I just want to congratulate Jeff Baker and Matt, both of them, adding a new era next year. We're looking forward to work with you guys, and it'll be great to be a Colerain Township elected official. And I just want to briefly tell you something. We developed that strategic plan 2019 and 2020, and I see a lot of changes in 2019. We see a lot of new roads being built, and we're improving the sidewalks. The sidewalk is my priority, which we met 2020 vision with our administrative team, Jeff Mills, Jeff Park, and that's my priority. I'm going to really work on it, and a lot of money we're getting from the ODOT, and we're going to meet with these people. And like I said a few meetings ago, that sidewalk from Northwest High School to the Pippin is going to happen. And they are going to give the money, and we're going to make it officially meet with this ODOT, the planning director, and very confident in it. Second thing, I really want to mention the 2020 vision we talked about with Jeff Mills and Jeff Park. We talk a lot of times communications. And I'm really changing the wording, connectivity. We want the town to be connected to the residents, the citizens of our community, Colerain Town, should be connected to the township. And it's very important. You know, they feel free, they feel ease to come to the township, be part of this government. And that's one thing that I'm emphasized, and we're going to starting with most likely hiring people to answer the telephone. And there's something we talked about that, and a lot of times the residents, I get a lot of complaints also. It's hard to reach the township because we lack of people. We have only one person doing all the job. So this is something that we're going to look into it and make sure that the people, the residents call the township, the person there to answer and, and direct it to right person. So these are the things that we're really working, and I know Jeff Mills met with each trustees and asked them the priorities, what the priorities for 2020. This is very, very important. We cannot be just runaway train. You got to be strategic planning every year where we're going to go. What I tell them all the time, we got to create an evidence-based program where we can quantify this program works. We cannot just start a program, we cannot quantify, we cannot see the result. So during a meeting with both Jeffs, I emphasized that we need to have the evidence-based program. They do that in the business community, and we got to do this in the government. And this is what the direction we're going to. I think Greg and Dane and me, we come up with a lot of ideas, and we're going to go 2020 our vision in the right direction, and we'll see the significant improvement in the government, in the process, and what we do, which help our community, make the Colerain a better place to live. That's my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It'll be a great year, 2020.
Yes.
Great year, great year. Where are we at? All right, public safety?
Public safety, the new business.
Yes, sir. We have one item of new business in public safety, and it will be presented by Chief Mark Denny.
Last time, I promise.
No deal.
This first item has been something that we've needed for a few years, and we've planned for this. We have been using personal vehicles really to transport evidence from our property room to disposal. So we tell everybody to bring your trucks in and get it done, which is fine, but it's really not the proper way for us to be doing things. When we started looking at this, I wanted more than just that reason, though, for needing this piece of equipment. We talked about being able to use this truck and this trailer for road closures. You talk about the accident we had that we just presented the report on. To be able to shut down an entire lane of traffic without tying up a police officer or tying up a fire apparatus, which a lot of times they stick around much longer than they need to just to make sure our guys are protected. This gives us the ability to shut down the roadways for long periods of time without putting an officer sitting there or putting a fire vehicle there. So there's a lot of uses for what this request is going to be, and I'll get to that here. It's a motion to purchase a 2019 F-150 cargo trailer and truck. Recommend adoption of a motion to purchase a 2019 Ford F-150 responder pickup and cargo trailer. Also included in this purchase is a cost for safety cones, a small generator, and these items have previously been approved by the board as a capital purchase for the police department. The combined cost is $55,898.25, and this is a reduction from the original approved cost, and this truck is on state bid and the trailer was competitively bid. I have a rationale attached in your packets there that Lieutenant Chris Phillips prepared. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer that from that document.
Thank you, Chief. That was good thing to add to our police department.
When would you have such a thing if it was approved?
Should we
Make a motion.
have a motion first before we begin discussion?
Sure, I'll make the motion for discussion, or so that we can have discussion.
I think we have to motion.
I'll
Yes.
make a motion to approve.
Second,
Now, discussion.
any discussions?
If we were to approve such a thing, when would it be put into service? Is this safety trailer something you have to put together, or?
We've done all the back work. We'd be ready to move immediately.
So the dealer you're purchasing it from could deliver it in a reasonable time, and it'd be on the road and used by our accident response team in a month or two, or?
Yeah, I believe by the end of the year, we should be able to have it out working.
Okay.
Chief, this money is already from the your appropriation,
Yes,
right?
the board approved that in my capital purchase plan. at the
Capital
beginning of the
purchase
year.
plan. It's not any new money at all, right?
Sorry.
It's not a new money that we are to spend.
No, it's not. It was appropriated already ahead of time.
Any further discussions? Go roll call, please.
Mr. Enscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Mashkopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, board.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, Mr. Rajagopal, the next item, of new business, is in the Public Services Department. I'll take that one. We have, for your consideration, a resolution for the vacation of the fee right-of-way of the portion of Blue Rock Road in Section 7, Town 2, Entire Range 1, Colerain Township, Hamilton County, Ohio. You'll all recall that Cheviot and Hanley, Blue Rock, was realigned. That left a number of parcels, right-of-way parcels, sort of unneeded, right? And so the Hamilton County Board of County Commissioners, at the request of the Hamilton County Engineer, at their September 19th meeting, transferred some right-of-way from Blue Rock Road to the township. So it used to be Hamilton County Commissioners right-of-way. Now it's our right-of-way. We have no need for that right-of-way. It's a couple of slivers. And so the recommendation is to approve the resolution that you have before you. And that begins the process of vacating that right-of-way so that the township wouldn't have to maintain it. We have no use for it. And recommendation is to approve the resolution.
We have such a motion.
I'll offer a second.
Any discussions?
Yes, you and I have talked about this extensively, and my question was, if you go in front of White Oak Christian Church, you still see the utility lines running where old Blue Rock Road used to be. I believe there's still a water main under there, and I believe there's still a gas main under there. I am not an engineer, but I've lived within half a mile of that for the last 35 years, and I was on Gaines before that, but how does that affect the utility easement? Will Duke or the Waterworks or whoever be able to get onto what is ultimately going to become private property once we vacate it? And I'm in favor of the vacation, so we don't have to cut it and maintain it, but the answer you have given me is it's in the ORC that in such a vacation, there's a permanent utility easement. Is that, do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so I posed the question to Bob Heidkamp of the Hamilton County Engineer's Office, and his response was that on the vacation plat, the following is stated: "It is understood that the area that is the subject of this vacation of right-of-way shall automatically be deemed a permanent utility easement in accordance with Section 5553.043 of the Ohio Revised Code, as soon as the Board of County Board of County Commissioners appropriately authorize said vacation. So that would mean that by virtue of the action that the commissioners are taking, vacating the right-of-way, it's Bob Heidkamp's opinion that at that moment, state law creates a permanent easement for all the utilities that are underneath there.
Which may prevent the church or the former White Oak Auto Care property from ever constructing anything there because it's on top of a water main, gas main, or underneath the power line. So there's still a utility easement. It's just not anything for Colerain Township. If Duke needed to get in there next week, they could just drive right out on the grass, because it's a pretty long grass strip there, and service their utility. I just wanted to make sure the township wasn't giving up something that would be next to impossible to ever get back if we would ever need it.
Yes, sir.
So it sounds like the answer is there's a permanent utility easement there, just so we're all clear about that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Rinska?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item of new business is in the Planning Department, and the Planning Department has been busy. We've got a number of items for you, and Mr. Mike Iona will present those.
Good evening, Board. We have 6 items for you this evening. The first is a motion to accept a grant from the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance for the amount of $15,000. This grant will allow us to utilize the funding for a street tree program that will be enacting in Northbrook area, more specifically along Lower Linda Drive. When we first were going to seek the money, we thought we could do about 30 trees. It turns out we're going to be able to do about 38 with the contract. And that is to the next item that I have for you all. So my recommendation is that you adopt this motion and accept the grant from the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments, as well as the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance, for the amount of $15,000.
I'll make the motion.
And I will second it.
In discussions? That's a good money for the community developments, you know. We need more grants.
Certainly. Every bit helps.
A great job, Mike. Thank you. So roll call, please.
Mr. Rinska?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
All right. The second item is a motion to authorize the township administrator to execute a contract associated with the previous item. And that contract would be with Jeffrey Allen Corporation in an amount not to exceed the $15,000 to install trees in the right-of-way of Lower Linda Drive. I'd like to note that when we put this out for bid, I did initially I contacted all Colerain Township landscapers.
Cool.
And I did make contact with several of them. There were a couple of them that did submit bids, but they submitted them far too late. This agenda went out last week, and those bids came in like at the end of the week. So we couldn't get on they couldn't get on the agenda. However, I would like to note that Jeffrey Allen was the lowest bid of all the bids that we received, whether on time or late. So we will be working with Jeffrey Allen, who's been excellent to work with. Some of the items that we put into that contract was that all the trees would have no nuisance characteristics. So think about the ginkgo trees and the berries that they have, those spiky plants or whatever, those spike balls that you used to throw at your neighbors or whatever. And
Spike balls, that's right.
Spike balls. I don't know what they are. I tried to ask somebody on staff what they are. But we wanted to make sure that there were no nuisance characteristics such as that. So that's one of the specific things we put in the contract. The other item that we have is that we would not plant them near any overhead utilities. They would not interfere with any underground utilities. And in fact, as it pertains to the types of trees we're planting, we're currently working with a contact at the State Department of Natural Resources. She's awesome. She knows a ton about trees. So she's been helpful in making sure that we're planting the right types of trees, and that when we plant them, they don't get too big and impact the sidewalk or the curb, overhead utilities, et cetera. So that we're getting the right trees with this money, and that they'll be there for quite some time. So again, the motion, the recommended motion is that you all authorize this, the township administrator to execute all necessary documents to enter into a contract not to exceed $15,000 to install trees in the right-of-way along Lower Linda Drive.
I motion that we authorize the administrator to execute that contract.
I'll offer a second.
Any discussions?
Yes, that is a way to go out and find the grant money, and so we're not spending local property tax dollars on that, and make Northbrook a nicer, even nicer place, and just keep doing great things over there.
Yeah. With a name like Jeffrey Allen, how can you go wrong?
Yeah. It's a good thing for the Laura Linda Drive, and the trees bring the beautification. One of the theme that we have, the Colerain Township, the beautification, and it brings another neighborhood great look. Okay. Thank you. Good.
Thank you.
Which Laura Linda Drive will this be on? Which Laura Linda Drive?
It'll be on the north Laura Linda Drive.
South of Springdale.
You live in Laura Linda, you know?
Yeah, but there's another Laura Linda, like, block from where the first one is.
Okay.
We chose Laura Linda because it's like the main thoroughfare through Northbrook.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay, you got roll call,
Are you ready?
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Runger?
Aye.
So the next item is a motion to award a tactical urbanism grant for an amount not to exceed $500. As Jeff spoke about the tactical urbanism grant program earlier, it's all about making small-scale temporary improvements to the built environment to create vibrancy, to build placemaking within a community. We did have an applicant submit an application, and this was for some paint, to paint on sidewalk or in other public spaces. And it is a paint that when wet actually shows up. So it's, when it's raining outside, or maybe there's a flood in a certain area, but specifically when it rains, you'll be able to see different messages and pictures, within the community that it's located in.
Thank you.
That's interesting.
Application. I've never heard of it before, but I'm interested in working with this applicant to see how great it can be.
So the recommendation is adoption of a motion to award that grant.
You have such motion?
I have a motion that we do such thing to get it on the floor.
I second it. Any discussions?
So this is probably the first one of these we've done?
Yes, sir.
So what's the follow-up on it?
So what happens then, in this instance, the township would purchase the materials in an amount not to exceed $500, and the applicant would do the project, as it's described in the application.
Within a certain time frame, or right now the weather's not suitable for such a thing?
Not today. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, do we get it done in 90 days, or the grant's rescinded, or how does that work?
I don't think we do have this. So this is sort of a pilot program. We're trying to work out the details just like
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Maybe when the weather get better?
Are we authorizing Mike to handle this one?
Yeah, so what you would be authorizing is for the township to expend $500, and what our expense will be in this instance will be on the materials necessary to accomplish the project. And the project is to paint or stencil messages with this paint
Right.
that only shows up when it's wet.
Which is fine, I just want to know what the timeline is on how this is going to work.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'd have to work with the applicant to figure out what their
I would
timeline
say
is.
we deputize Mike to make sure
I
this
can
gets
promise
done.
I'll stay diligent to make sure that any funds awarded are properly executed.
Yeah, that they,
I'll give
well,
a
yeah,
report
because you're
back.
running it, so they will come to you with, this is our final plan. We're going to start on this date and build in 3 or 4 rain days, and then it'll be finished on this date.
Right.
So I will, as a trustee, I will count on you to make sure this one gets done. It'll give us something to look at as we move forward with this program, so.
Certainly. Yes, and I guarantee, I promise I'll give you updates as we.
I know you will, you're on it.
All right.
I'm sure we'll get a sunny day or a 65-degree day sometime in December.
Or a hill that Dan told you to climb.
I'm not that bad, Mike, am I?
No.
All right.
I just want to make sure it gets done in a reasonable time.
Let's,
Would you like me to call the roll?
Absolutely.
go ahead and call for it.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Runger?
Aye.
Okay, the next item is a resolution to declare nuisance and ordering abatement for the following properties: 2585 Ambassador, 11588 Green Ridge, 10087 Manistee, 3044 Overdale, 3052 Overdale, 2413 Shone, 2544 Wenning. And again, the staff is recommending that you all adopt a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement on the aforementioned properties.
What was the one after shown?
It was 2544 Wenning.
We do a lot of winning around here.
I would motion that we approve the list you've described.
I'll offer a second.
Discussions?
None from me.
I think, again, we are moving forward. One of the part of the program, Clean Up Colerain, and we've become very successful. We're working with the housing court, the issuing KPS, even people, they're locking people up. I think the aggressive code enforcement, and it's really working to better the Colerain Township. Thank you. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Runger?
Aye.
So the next item is a motion to authorize the township administrator to execute all necessary documents to enter an agreement with Rock Solid Construction to demolish and restore property located at 6700 Schuster Court for the amount of $7,698. The subject property in question burned down on August 14th in 2018. It's been found to be vacant, unsafe, and insecure. Staff has put out a request for demolition quotes on October 3rd, 2019 via email to a whole list of demo contractors. The request of quotes was also posted on our website until October 17th, 2019. We did receive 3 responses. One was from Rock Solid, one was from Algeyer and Son, and one was from Demolition Incorporated, who decided not to bid. Of those 3, Rock Solid Construction was the lowest with a bid of $7,698. Based on these bids, staff is recommending that we award this contract to Rock Solid Construction. We've been working with them on a timeline to get this project accomplished. They had promised us early on that it'd be done before Christmas, but Christmas is going to come early. They're thinking that they can get it done the first week of December. So as such, staff is recommending that you all adopt a motion to authorize the township administrator to execute all documents necessary to enter agreement with Rock Solid Construction.
I would motion that we authorize the township administrator to execute the contract with Rock Solid Construction.
I'll offer a second.
Any discussions?
Thanks for stepping it up on that one. It is a horrible burnout. It is a real blight, and I've been over there several times. I spoke to one of the neighbors as recently as this afternoon because he wanted to know how this was going to turn out tonight, and I said I'll call him after the meeting and let him know. They really want to get that mess, horrible mess, cleaned up.
Yeah, for one more piece is that the funds for this demolition are not local money. It's not township money. It's community development block grant dollars. We were able to get a grant to knock this down.
I can appreciate the grant money, but is there any way the fire department can burn down the rest of it so we don't have anything to
There's
demolish?
nothing left. It's a very unsafe site. It's just, I can't believe somebody hasn't fallen into it. It needs to be, so you'll be contacting them in the morning to get it initiated.
We're moving as fast as we can on that one.
Right, yeah, it is a disaster.
I want to give Dan credit on this one. He really took the bull by the horns. So thank you for stepping up and expediting a blatant issue.
Other thing that spending the money this much will be recouped by selling the property once they're all cleaned up.
Yes, so the goal is to transfer it through the CIC.
Yeah.
Well, we're not sure how it's
Potentially.
Potentially we can recoup the money. Okay?
Well, yeah.
More details on that, but one step at a time, we're going to get it down, and then we'll move forward with the acquisition of it.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Runger?
Aye.
Okay, so the last item pertains to the public hearing at the earlier part of the agenda, and it was for zoning case ZA 2019-07. This was a zone change for the former Fireside Hotel and Community Recreation Center site, changing the zoning on the site in question from B2, which is a general commerce zone, to the B3, which is a commerce zone. Again, the intent of this is really just to allow that Duke Energy use. The Duke Energy use would not be permitted in the B2. So they can't expand and use this for the parking or the storage. And the intent of the storage, maybe that was misconstrued in my presentation. It's really just storage within a building. It's not like outdoor storage. We have a lot of regulations on that in the zoning ordinance. So they may have a portion of their storage there associated with the building, but the real intent is for the parking. And the zone change would allow that use to be permitted because it's not permitted in the B2 zone. So they need this zone change in order to expand onto these two sites.
And the zoning resolution specifically prohibits granting of a use variance. So
Right.
we cannot grant a use variance.
Well, and the Board of Trustees cannot grant a variance at all.
Right.
That's the BZA can do that, not the Board of Trustees. And that can only be done if the applicant applies for a variance, and that hasn't been done here.
Perfect.
So again, I mean, it's going to be something, while we don't have a site plan, staff is very confident that it's going to be very quality development as it pertains to all off-street parking. Those are the same requirements from the B1 all the way to the B3 zone. So if they have over 15 spaces, they're going to have to put the landscape islands in, they're going to have to landscape the front facade of the building. All that stuff still applies in this zone. So we're not really losing out on any of these, what I call creature features of the site, the landscape requirements, parking requirements, building and facade treatments, articulation, things like that, architecture. What we're really doing here is just changing the zoning to allow for this use in this specific case.
I would motion that we approve the zone change for zoning case ZA 2019-07.
I'll make a second.
Any discussions?
Yes, from the beginning, this project, the old Western Home Center that used to be there, and then Builder's First Source, and then Fireside Hotel, the progress we've made on that site is phenomenal, and it has not been without a battle, and you bear a lot of the scars of the many battles that we have fought along the way on this. I am thrilled to have Duke Energy set up an operations site there on Colerain Avenue. Not just for the 100 jobs, but I just think it's great for our community to have all those materials that whatever they need to provide the utility service. We're sitting in a lit room that's heated on a cold winter night. A lot of people lose sight of why we have all these things, and to have those resources laid up right here in Colerain Township is phenomenal. And there's been quite investment made there, and you're going to see giant changes along Colerain Avenue in the next 5 years once that place is open and running and functioning, and you're going to have accessory businesses move in, and I just think it's tremendous. And it has been a long, we've taken 20 years off your life with this. And I fully intend to support this when the vote is called.
Any, like I said earlier, when the discussions brought it up, we are very careful. You are changing from business district to the commercial district. There's, we saw that your presentation, what is the requirement for the commercial district. I'm really concerned, make sure that it's not become like that 1.5 acres of the land become just a parking lot. Now we're spending all the money in the beautification of the Colerain Avenue. Now we try to develop all this Duke Energy is a great things happening there. On the other hand, you gotta be very careful they didn't present this in the initial planning. They're amending this. So we gotta be very careful what type of things is gonna happen, like a storage, a parking lot. How it's gonna coincide the look, the front of the building of the new buildings. So something that zoning and Jeff Mills should look into it, get the good planning from the Duke Energy, how they're going to add this in the original planning, the building planning. That's my main concern. And then you said they're going to submit all the planning for that storage and parking,
So
right?
subsequent follow-up would be after approved, they would come in for a zoning permit, at which point staff will work with them to meet the requirements of the ordinance, like I stated before, which are, we have architectural design requirements, we have parking requirements, and other things like that, to make sure we get a quality product. And this isn't just for this site, this is every commercial development throughout Colerain Township. So they'll be subject to those same codes to make sure we get something quality.
And I'm not aware, so I've been working on this project since 2016, and I don't recall ever hearing that. I don't know how storage got thrown into the conversation. I don't recall there ever being storage at this part of the site. The intention has always been to square off the site, remove an awful blighting influence on our community, and so they also are not demanding anything. So we're working in partnership with Duke. We have purchased the Colerain Township CIC has purchased the property. We own it right now. We're demolishing the property, and this action that we're taking right here is to harmonize our piece, which will eventually sell to Duke, with the site with Duke's piece. And so it is all one zoning district, which is B3. B2 and B3 are both commercial districts. B3 is called the Commerce District, but B2 and B3 are commercial. So that it doesn't change that. In summary, there's nothing new here. This is all part of the original plan, was to eliminate a blighting influence in Groesbeck, combine this site with the site behind it, and the action that we're taking tonight is just to get the zoning districts to all be the same. I don't believe that there's going to be any storage in the front. I believe that what you're going to see, I haven't seen a site plan, but in conversations with them, there will be a driveway to additional parking in the front there, which would all be screened per our resolution with landscaping and buffering. So,
Thank you. Any further discussions?
And that parking, there's liable to be that many more people employed in Colerain Township parking there. I'd wholeheartedly ask my fellow trustees to support this, but we'll see when the vote's called.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Proudly, aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Iona. Thank you, board. Next item on the agenda is, next two items are administration items, and the first one is a resolution adopting the 2020 policy priorities and directing staff to implement these policy priorities through a strategic plan and budget. We have engaged as many stakeholders as we possibly could in the creation of and in the development of our strategic plan. We had 3 town hall meetings where we talked about what the residents wanted to see in us do next year. We've had one-on-one meetings with each of you to talk about your policy priorities. And so this document, this resolution, identifies 4 policy priorities that were generated in those one-on-one conversations with each of you. Create connections by improving communications, building new sidewalks, and ensuring the maintenance of existing sidewalks. Improve the aesthetics of our community through beautification initiatives. Create a new brand for the township and deploy it through signage and gateway features. Improve neighborhood health by focusing on code enforcement. That was my understanding of our conversations, and they are memorialized here in this resolution. What we will do if you adopt this resolution is try to do those things for you and identify how we're going to do those things in our strategic plan, which we'll be presenting December 10th.
Do you mind, just for emphasis, can you reread those things so everyone can hear that? I want them to really understand the significance of this.
Sure. So create connections by improving communications. This is what Raj was talking about a little bit earlier. Raj, I think it sounds like you really want to, connectivity is very important to you, and that means communicating effectively with our residents, but it also means connecting physical locations, connecting people with physical locations like the sidewalks that you and other trustees have talked about. So building new sidewalks and making sure that the existing sidewalks are maintained. Second one is improving the aesthetics of our community through beautification initiatives. That was obviously the theme of 2019 strategic plan, was twofold. It was beautification and it was engagement. And so Trustee Insco in particular, in my conversation with you, it came across very strongly that you very much want to continue the beautification initiatives, and I know that that sentiment is shared by Mr. Rajagopal and Mr. Unger. Create a new brand for the township and deploy it through signage and gateway features. What we saw with one of our beautification initiatives this year in the Colerain Avenue corridor plan was the sort of design elements that can brand a place. So right now, Colerain Avenue can seem almost the same as you drive through, but there are distinct character areas. There's Groesbeck, there's the auto-oriented area, there's the mall area, and each of those can have its own branding associated with it. And then finally, improve neighborhood health by focusing on code enforcement. Mr. Unger, in my conversation with Mr. Unger, this came through very strongly to continue to our efforts with code enforcement, and I know that sentiment is shared by the other trustees from listening to you talk for the last 2 years. So.
Talk or ramble?
I'm the one rambling right now. So that's those were the 4 sort of policy priorities as I understood them.
Perfect.
Okay.
Hope everyone got that.
So what do you need, a motion to?
Need a motion.
Yes, I'll make the motion.
I second it. In discussions?
2020, bring it on.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk to each of us, and I think I've made an impact on your thinking on it, and you kind of know where I'm coming from with stuff.
Yes, sir.
As far as the communication and connectivity thing, my cell phone number is 513-404-3057. I've always made myself available with my personal cell. Please call after about 5:15. I do have a day job, and this is separate from that. So the connectivity's right here. That's my cell phone number. It's on the township website. Just call in the evening, and I'm glad you took the time to put all this together. So,
yes, sir.
I was impressed that everything you mentioned was something that we've all been in favor of, all of us. So I like that. It seems like we're all on the same page with the priorities. So
it's good to have a plan.
Sir.
I think 2020 is going to be a great year, and we see that big improvement in Colerain Township. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Very good. The last item of new business we have for you this evening is consideration of a motion setting a special meeting of the Board of Trustees for December 3rd, 2019 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of conducting a public hearing on the township's motor license registration fee. So at your October 22nd trustee meeting, you adopted a motion to set a public hearing, and this just more formally establishes that special meeting, and we want to make very clear when that's going to be and for what purpose. So the recommendation is to approve this motion.
Is such a motion?
I'll motion that we set the special meeting on December 3rd, 2019.
I second it. Discussions? Any discussions?
real quick, Larry, do we all 3 have to attend this for any reason? If there's a reason why one of us can't?
No, if there's a reason why one of you can't, no, that would be,
It's not the end of the world.
it's not the end of the world. There's going to be 2 hearings.
Yeah. Okay.
This by no means that any of us is in favor. This is only to take public input, because I'm frankly not in favor of raising it. But we certainly want to take public input. And
Yes, sir.
Is there a hard stop time for this by chance?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Are we going to give, like citizens address 5 minutes, anything like that? Or can you even limit a public hearing?
I think it's unlimited public hearing. At reasonable time, reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's up to the trustees.
Yeah.
I think you have some discretion as to at least keep it reasonable, yes.
Depending on weather, I don't know what kind of turnout we'll get.
I'm sure we'll have turnout. No other comments from me.
Good, roll call, please.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. There are 2 items on the consent agenda this evening, and I am so excited about the first one. So I'll roll through both of those, and then we can vote on the consent agenda. We have, with the transition of Kevin Schwartz out of the Public Services Director position, we published a job ad, and we received 10 applications. We interviewed 6 candidates, and we have found an outstanding candidate in Ms. Jacqueline O'Connell. Jackie's here in the audience today with her son. Thank you, Jackie. Jackie comes to us most recently from Great Parks, where she served as the operations superintendent for Great Parks of Hamilton County. In this role, she was responsible for the maintenance of the park and their roads, and that is an incredible endeavor. It's a very large in terms of footprints. So she was very busy there. Her role there transitioned then to a customer service, not customer service, but a customer experience, more customer experience related sort of role. Before that, she was the assistant director of Parks and Recreation in the city of Springdale. We are ecstatic that she will be hopefully bringing her talents to Colerain Township, and she starts tomorrow if approved today.
Tonight.
Yeah, literally. Oh, you don't want that to be on the consent agenda?
Well, it can be, but just do it separately. She's going to announce how much you get paid.
Okay.
And all that. Or
Yeah, we can do that. So she would, if approved, as stated in the agenda here, her hourly rate would be $40.87. Her supervisor would be Mr. Weckbach. She'd work 40 hours a week. She would start, as I said, tomorrow. And I think that's all the other information that I have listed here. So the other item on the consent agenda is a contract with Civic Plus for facilities rentals. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but this will improve the customer experience for booking rentals, including shelters, community centers, fields, ball fields, and other items. So my recommendation is to approve the consent agenda.
Yeah, first, the motion to hire.
So the way that the consent
Director?
So the way the consent agenda usually works is that it's on the consent agenda and it's voted on all at once. But would you recommend not doing that?
I would recommend that you vote first on the motion to hire.
Right.
And put that into the minutes separately from the next motion.
Okay, then we'll.
Okay. We have motion to hire.
Recommend, yeah. Yes.
Public Service Director.
I will motion to hire a new public services director.
I second. Discussions?
Yes. One of the most critical things to me is we have a lot of streets in this township that need to be maintained. There was a lot of building here in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and recently some of the other properties that pace from 30, 40 years ago has slowed considerably, but there are some new streets coming in, and you occasionally bring new streets to us for acceptance into our inventory of streets. And if you remember last year with Austin Ridge, we were asked to accept it in 8 or 1,000-foot increments, 800 to 1,000-foot increments, which I'm not in favor of, and we ended up having a meeting with representatives of the county engineer's office to discuss some of my concerns. And I think the real challenge for a new public services director, and you and I spoke about this for about 40 minutes on a Sunday night phone call a couple evenings ago, that has to change. I am not happy with the condition of our brand-new streets that are coming online. They're built to a specification that's not, and I'm not an engineer, and you're not allowed to represent that you are, and I've actually had ethics training for that. So I am not an engineer, but I see undulating pavement that is sinking in some places on some of these brand-new streets that are still under development. And so my challenge to you, if you're approved and you show up tomorrow morning, that is my priority. And we get 6 inches of snow. I noticed you waited a day till the snow went by, but in all seriousness, that is my big concern, and this is not a small challenge. This is huge, and you don't have to answer this question, but I hope you're up for it. And we had a nice conversation, and you understand what I was talking about. That's critical. That's critical to me. Okay, those are my comments.
Any comment?
You?
Yeah, sure. I've read your resume. It's very impressive resume. You have a great leadership skill. I think the great leadership skill will take you to the level, the expectation of what Mr. Hunger is talking about. And you have the computer great knowledge, and also you have also the skill of research and how you designate your skill to other people. That's very impressive. Colerain Township is changing a lot, and you'll be the part of the change. And you joined the great team. We got a lot of new people coming in, and you'll be a great asset for this team. And I tell Jeff all the time, we got a dream team. And we got a great people here. And like I said, with the 2020 vision we have, and you will make it happen. I'm also so proud of, welcoming you to the Colerain Township. Also, you brought your little son to see this moment, and it's amazing. And congratulations, okay? And any discussions?
Yeah, I just got a text. Can this lady speed up streetlights? We need it, LOL. So hopefully your workload's already piling up and you haven't even started yet. Obviously, I love parks. Parks are near and dear to me. I worked in the Parks Department for decades at this point. We have a great group of employees that all highly recommend you. And in your interview, you said something that resonated with me, and hopefully I can paraphrase this, but I need your help on this. You had a quote. You said, "Parks are for making memories." Perfect. That's all I needed.
Okay. Any further discussions? Roll call, please.
Thrilled to call the roll.
Roll.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Runger?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Please stand up.
Yeah.
Stand up.
Welcome to the team. Welcome to the team. All right.
Welcome aboard, Jackie. Okay, so
Did Mike and Jeff get that applause when they were hired? I don't recall.
I
They're
know.
sitting next to each other, just madder than anything, aren't they?
That's right.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so the other item that was on the consent agenda, just to be clear, and maybe we should just get rid of the consent agenda altogether, but.
Well, that's one way to put it.
Because you guys have already authorized me to execute contracts in the amount of $10,000 or less. The reason that I placed these contracts on the consent agenda is because we are committed to transparency in Colerain Township. And so I put all the contracts that I sign on a public agenda, and you've already given me the authorization. I've already signed this contract. This is a step that we take for an additional layer of transparency, or to clear out an additional layer of opacity. So I put all the contracts on the consent agenda, and we don't have to do that next year if you don't want to. It's something for us to consider. But recommend authorization, or recommend approval of the consent agenda is really my motion.
That would be the second item, the contract with Civic Plus for facility rentals. I'd recommend that we approve that.
Okay, we have a motion, right? We have a motion, a second.
On the motion.
Well, Jeff actually made a motion, but I don't think he's.
My recommendation is.
I've motioned that we approve the contract with Civic Plus for facility rentals.
I'll second. Any discussions?
I'll keep that in mind for next year, Jeff. I'll keep that in mind.
I got one question, Jeff.
Yes.
And this, the initial cost is $7,215.
Yes, sir.
In turn. First, then cost per year, $4,329.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay. Now, what is, hypothetically, we spending for this, what is income of renting property comes approximately yearly?
Yes, significant.
Like approximate, can you give some?
About $100,000. About $100,000.
$100,000.
Approximately, yes.
This from the rental
Yes.
business?
Yep.
Okay. This software, the 4,000 will eliminate a lot of overhead, the employee.
We'll get rid of OpenGov, or no, we'll get rid of eGov, which is a software program that we have been phasing out. And so this was the last little piece that eGov was still providing for us. Once we get done with this, we'll be done with eGov
And
altogether.
blissfully, we'll be done with PayPal, too.
And we'll be done with PayPal. Because this also provides a way for residents to pay for these rentals online. So.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any further discussions?
No.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Runger?
Aye.
Very good. We have accomplished a lot today, Board. I really
Okay.
appreciate it.
The next on the agenda is fiscal office report. Jeff Baker.
Too soon.
Don't make him do that yet. I'd like to ask for the board's usual approval of payroll, purchase orders, and receipts.
I motion that we approve as Heather has requested.
I'll offer a second, Jeff. Heather.
I think you should change your name after.
I'm tempted. It's a cool name. 4 letters. I'm used to that.
Well,
Okay.
I second it.
Okay.
Okay, any
No,
discussion?
Greg seconded.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
You thirded it.
Any discussion, please?
Mr. Rinsko?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
I did want to mention, in I had this copied and pasted, and it went away on me because that's, how technology works when you want something in front of you. In the month of October, we had 56 public records requests closed. So just as a statistic for all of you. I wanted to thank everyone that was involved with the Veterans Day ceremony yesterday. It was beautiful. And I was there with my favorite sailor, my dad. And it was just, I think we stood around and talked after the ceremony for probably about 45 minutes. And it was beautiful. And it was just a wonderful way to bring everybody together. And I think the only reason why we aren't still standing there talking is that it started raining. So thank you to everybody who was involved with that yesterday. And Dan, the next time you go to a park and bring James along. Bring my 6-year-old along so you have an expert opinion.
But I'd encourage anybody to go there and look at it. That's a big decision we have coming up.
It absolutely is.
And I take it very seriously, and it's something different than we're going to have probably, but I have time to do these things, and I did go over and was there for quite a while, just checking it out.
If I can piggyback off of Heather's comments about the veterans celebration, we have such considerate staff. So knowing that there was a chance there was a snowstorm coming, Jeff, our administrator and our assistant administrator, they actually did all the chairs and the setup so that our public works employees didn't have to do that, so that they could potentially, knowing that they might be up in the middle of the night plowing our roads. And I just think you guys are awesome for just being you. So just thank you for being you. Thank you.
It's great that State Auditor Keith Faber came and joined us and gave the proclamation of our lost officer, Dale Woods. It was very touching. All his police officers and firefighters were there. It's great. Good event to salute our veterans.
Absolutely, and he recognized Ron Stanger as well. So that was fantastic. So that's the end of my report. Thank you. But before you leave, you three, there's plenty of things here for you to sign.
There's one you missed, Josh, right here, or 2 of them.
All right, the next agenda is executive sessions if needed.
Yeah,
I don't
sure,
think
why
so
not?
we need. So we'll move to adjournment. We have a motion to adjourn.
No.
I would motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I second it. So roll call.
Mr. Rinsko?
Aye, but first you got to sign these, Rush.
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks for all your help. Thank you very much for attending the meeting.
Have a good night. Got to gavel it.
Oh, yeah. Meeting is adjourned.